community basis.
Yeah.
I think that'll really matter. But that's the only thing I've seen that's been passed out of committee to that. There's bills that have been filed by a congressman in Mississippi who is also trying to. They're being filed, but they got to go through committee and they got to get to the full House floor. And right now, none of them have. New York, New Jersey. The New York congressional put a bill in that said, we're trying to rebuild. Don't stymie us with this hit of this whole full law while we're trying to rebuild. Allow us to have a longer phase, those areas that were affected, to have a longer, say like 5% a year phase in to get us through that rather than hitting us so hard. That bill did not get out of committee. Okay? That tells you that you got people in need, and you're saying that. And where's the president's biggest base of liberalism at in this country? Okay? I mean, I'm just telling you, you can say, yeah, there's bills and amendments to this being filed, but I'm not seeing any of them getting any legs to answer your question. Okay? I won't discount what they said, because it's true, but that's where we're going.
Well, I'll tell you, Mary Landry is the last ditch effort. March 15th of this year, she sent out the letter saying to the lawmakers, the FEMA has conducted a study, issued the report, and it's supposed to be, the report for the new base flood elevations and all that stuff was due by April 6, 2013, which is Saturday. Now, I've got this letter here that's Mary Landry signed and everybody else signed, and somebody leaked out to me, and you probably got it too. And that was mailed out just recently, but that's kind of close to the date that they're going to make it. Because April 6th will be Saturday.
It's like I said,
It's only,
just looking for.
that may sit on the desk over there for about a week, 2 weeks before I open the envelope.
But again, it's still there's no legislation being filed for that. That's a request, and that's done by letter and asking you people. I'm just telling you what I'm seeing and what I'm hearing. Yes.
I have a client that's got a repetitive loss property, and they're telling him that the repetitive loss goes with the land instead of the building. He had tore down a house and rebuilt it.
It's not true.
He went from $1,000 to $8,000.
If he's mitigated his property, he just needs to go to his community official, which is either the parish or the local city township for that. They get credit for moving stuff out of the repetitive loss. So all he's got to prove is that it was mitigated. He gets with the floodplain manager for that group. They will petition the federal government to have it moved out, and he's bang back in the regular standard program, and he won't have any RL type issues. Now, if he didn't mitigate it to the proper levels, he's back in the same boat. Okay, but I doubt that they would have allowed a repetitive loss property even to get permitted, but at least get into base flood or higher or whatever code that they were adopting. But that's how it comes out. FEMA can't pull it out. An insurance agent can't pull it out. It is that local community official that has to basically present the case to FEMA to have it taken out of that repetitive loss program.
If it's in the city limits, it's still a parish?
If it's in the city limits, it's a city.
There's a floodplain manager in the city then?
If you don't know who to go to the permit department because they regulate floodplain management, and they can tell you who do you need to. Look, I tore the house out, I built a new house, the house is built to code, and I want to get it out of this repetitive loss thing. Who do I talk to? Start the permit department. If they regulate the program, if they don't do it, believe me, they will know who can do it. Okay? That's the easiest way for me to tell you that. But I know they get credits for pulling stuff out, because that's what they're supposed to be doing. And after a disaster, they get a certain amount of funding, and they want to pull the worst of the worst out of that repetitive loss by mitigation. Yes. Yes, sir.
You said that the rates would be gradually moved to the actuarial rates. Is there any way for us to know what that actuarial rate is up front so that we can give like a worst case scenario to a client or ourselves even, really? The
only thing that you can do right now, as an agent, and I advise my agent, you can only tell them how it's going to affect their current policy, because that's all you know. Once the October rates, they'll have new published rates, and then they can base it upon that. But to give them a rate other than what's for a current policy, that's all they can do. Because
I at least want to get them in the ballpark and say, okay, it's going to, it could go up to.
You're going to have to give them. You're going to have to give them specifics And in a lot of those cases, you aren't going to have the specifics because you don't have an elevation certificate.
Right.
So that's going to be an issue as well, you know.
But we can
but
obtain
to
that,
answer-
but we can't obtain the
Yeah.
final, what it's gonna be.
But if I'm in a BC or X zone right now, and I was in a BC or X like my parents were in an AE, now they're in a VE, you'd have to give me a VE zone with the elevation. They were built in 1964, so they don't even have an elevation certificate. How are you going to get that elevation certificate?
Go shoot.
Well, yeah,
Go pay for one.
pay for one, yeah.
I'm passing around a thing. I'm passing around a thing to get emailed this. If you're an agent here, you don't have to fill it out because I'm already sending it to all of y'all.
We have an AE, but you were built after 1974. Are you still going to be phased in?
Right now, understand, right now you're going to get actuarial, you're already considered actuarially rated. As long as you're not being grandfathered, you'll just continue on and get the regular increase. If you're being grandfathered into that zone, then that's when the August 2014 change and new map change comes in, and then you'll be phased into that. Understand, the program has a cap in any given year, which I covered earlier on. You can't raise the program's rates, I mean the overall program, 20% in any given year. So even if I'm grandfathered, I may have a phase in on that as well.
That's what I'm trying to ask you, is there a way to calculate how many years that can happen to you?
We could only, if you ask me,
devastating.
I can only give you the final number. If I had the exact information, I can only give you the final number. Based on what rates I currently have. Because I don't know what that rate will be in January or the following year or whatever. But that's pretty much, okay? I'm going to take one more question. Any other questions?
Could you please clear up, this is an issue that I talk to about people on the water all the time, on raised houses. You know, FEMA just hurt me bad where I live because I have a storage shed below. Could you clear up, if you can have a storage shed, you can't, because they took away my flood insurance over this storage shed. It was horrible.
You shouldn't take it away.
They took my $250,000 coverage away.
They drew cover.
Way down to 80, and my mortgage company said, no way, you gotta go back.
The federal program, look, just to give you real quick.
That's where I was studying.
It's a V zone.
Yeah, she's a visa.
Okay? The federal program says this. Your first rate in a V zone, and these are usually on stilts, okay, is at the lowest horizontal member that supports that floor, the bottom of it, with nothing underneath it. That's the lowest rate possible under the program.
What happened to you?
Hold on. Let me finish, please. Let me finish, please. If you put anything underneath there, you've taken that rate and made it 1.5 times about of what that original rate was. So if you paid it based on this rate, and then you put a shed down there, and then now it's 1.5 times, they're going to reduce coverage to what this would have bought on that structure. It's always been in the program, always been in it. It's a rate table. It has nothing to do with the rules. Then if you do, once you go to this 1.5, now I got this little obstruction underneath here. This, before that, was free of obstruction. This 1.5 is with obstruction. That's can be no greater than 300 square foot to get it to 1.5 times. And it must be with breakaway walls, and it can't have finished in. It can't be used for anything but parking, storage, or building access. Then I'm still in it to 1.5 times. Once I violate any of those, the 300, the breakaway walls, the 20 linear feet, the usage, now I'm going to surcharge that rate. That is how V-zone construction has always been in this program. Nobody changed it. Just because the manual says, Vince, don't help you in a zone that's breaking. This is water breaking across and moving in it. A vent is not going to do you any good. It ain't going to shove through that little hole as it hits your building. It's got to completely. It doesn't matter though. But so if I'm no obstruction, that's my lowest rate. My next one is with the obstruction. The code enforcement says. Code enforcement, not the federal program, not that. Your code enforcement says if you build in a V zone, all you have to do is build that whole, if you want to build anything out, they don't care how big you build it. You can build, I had a 4,000 square foot, one-story building in a V zone in Mandeville. This doctor closed the entire 4,000 square feet with breakaway walls. He's within code. But he's now in this level of rate. with the surcharge.
He don't care.